Thank you. You guys look wide awake. That's good. It's really good to see you here for this information, especially you young people, because as you look at this world, if you have some kind of awareness of the spiritual reality and even the physical reality, you see all these riots taking place, and the world of your future could be a world of a lot of fighting. And if not physical fighting, at least spiritual fighting. So this information, I hope, can really provide you a foundation, at least, to understand who you're fighting against. So, my name is Jim Stevens. I was asked by Richard Panzer to give this introductory talk about a month ago. And I accepted. I knew it was going to be hard. But I thought, okay, we'd do some training here, and it was a lot harder than I thought it would be, which happens in life often. Let me begin by offering a prayer. Our Heavenly Father, please join us. Help us to understand this information, because this tremendous enemy is coming, Father. And Satan is not going to give up this world without a fight. He has been your enemy. He's been our enemy since the beginning, Father. So we recognize that your kingdom is coming, but it's our responsibility to bring that kingdom on this earth. So help us to understand and recognize and this tremendous information that was started by our true Father even as early as the 1960s. And he recognized this evil and knew he had to fight against it and defeat it. So he gave us all of this, Father, as our spiritual weapon. So we pray that your Spirit will be with us, that you can guide us as we share this information and as we try and understand it. I pray and offer all of this to you and to our beloved true Father, our true Mother, and all that they have done for us. In gratitude, Father, we pray in the name of our blessed central family and all blessed central families. Jew. All righty. It's probably going to take me more than an hour to do this. I've got a lot of information. Prepare yourself for an hour and 20 minutes or so. I'll try and keep it going quickly. But I obviously want to give you some time to break before Sunday service. But there is a tremendous amount of information, and I want to obviously go slow enough so that you can kind of grasp what it is, but also fast enough to try and cover most of these points. And I will definitely not go beyond 9:30. So I will stop. 10:30, sorry. Yeah, 10:30. My nature is engineering, so my background, and I make the trains run on time, and if it's 9:30 and I'm not done, I'm done. I'll just stop. Because I saw this graph one time about how much your brain can actually absorb, and there gets a point at which you can sit there, but nothing more is going in, right? So I understand there's a point at which we stop and come back again another time, maybe. I chose this picture because it represents to me what communism is, and all throughout history we know, if we look back, we can see that this is really the essence of what communism has been. So this material comes from the Causa Manual, 264 pages, that really was established in 1985. So this material is 35 years old. But it's almost the same. If you start reading through this, you go, wow, this is not a whole lot of this has changed as far as Marxism and their goals and what they're doing. It's just they've had 35 years to keep developing. And unfortunately, they have, and they haven't been stopped. So what I did was I took this manual and I scanned it completely, every page. So you have a copy if you go online. That 101proofsforgod.com is my website, which I used for my book. But if you go /Causa, all capital letters, you'll get a website, and you can download the manual and you can download this PowerPoint. I made a couple edits this morning, so wait until a little while later before you download the PowerPoint to have the latest version. But so that's where to get a copy of the manual. And almost all these slides come directly from the manual, and so you'll get a good sense of what the manual is. And I'm going to go through the table of contents and show you what it is and how it all relates. So why do we do this? Why do we study communism? Why are you here? What do you want to learn today? What are some of the key points of the purpose of being here and the purpose of understanding this information? The biggest one for me comes out is this is the enemy of God. God, our Father, has this incredible enemy. And it makes him our enemy too. And an enemy actually of all of God's children. And this is, studying this material is difficult because you are looking face to face with Satan. Over the last month or so, I have to pray tremendous amount to do this, and so many new insights came to me. And one of them is this is really facing Satan and the spirit of evil looking into this ideology. This ideology advocates violence. And it's not just bullying. This is killing people. That's what this is all about. And we'll see as we go along more and more how they're justifying that and how they actually think that the ideal world is going to come faster if we kill all the people who oppose us. It is a very powerful ideology. And we'll talk a little bit about why it is so powerful. But it has taken over a tremendous amount of the world and American institutions, universities, schools. It's getting everywhere. The media, it's influencing everything. Even Christianity, to a large extent, is influenced by some of the concepts from Marxism. If we don't understand it, we can never defeat it. You don't know what their strengths are. You don't know why they're influencing people so much if you don't understand it. So that's what we're trying to do today, is understand it a little better. And they believe that they're destined to take over the world. So they will not stop. They will not stop. They haven't stopped. They intend, and as long as they're winning in their own minds, this is this is a generation after generation process to take over the world. They will not stop. So we have to be able to refute what they have to say, what their beliefs are, and expose it for others and get this ideology thrown into the dustbin of history. These two people are a couple of the founders of Black Lives Matter. And this one, Patrice Cullors, she says, one of the things she said, we are trained Marxists. Trained. Where have we heard that before? Get trained, folks, because they are trained. And they are trained in this ideology. The other one, her name is Yushra Kugali, and she thinks that white people are recessive genetic defects and subhuman. And that black people can literally wipe them out, wipe out the white race if they have the power. And there's lots of other quotes you can find too. Here, did you know, you've heard of Bill de Blasio? He's the mayor of New York City. Here's a picture of him when his name was Warren Wilhelm, down in Central America learning to be a communist. Bill de Blasio, he changed his name, but he still has all that ideology in there. What do you think, the way he's been acting? He's out on the street painting Black Lives Matter in front of the Trump Tower. He's he's standing down the police, so all that rioting takes place. They are trying to foment a violent revolution. That was Marx's goal from way back, 1860, whatever it was. This guy went on Fox News. He's a Black Lives organizer in Wisconsin. If America doesn't give us what we want, we will burn down this system. Actually, their intention is to burn down the system anyway. But they put it in terms of, well, if you give us what we want, we won't do it. Well, they're going to do it. That's their intention. So in the beginning, I had a really hard time to study this material. So I prayed and I said, why is this so hard? So how many have trouble studying this material? Okay, so here's the answer I came up with. But you may have your own answer, but this is difficult. We are repulsed, actually, by this material. Our original mind, you're a good person, your original mind rejects the idea of killing people. It rejects the idea that you have the right, these people are animals, and it's survival of the fittest. We can take them out and that will make a better world. All these ideas are repugnant to our original mind. It actually emerges from satanic feelings, thoughts, and intellectual arrogance. Lucifer is the source of this information, this ideology, these feelings. So people you don't have these feelings in general. So you don't relate easily to the idea of doing violence to someone else. So you have a hard time, even someone comes in and tries to talk you into it or justify it for you, you still go, no. Your original mind pushes this stuff away. So how could you actually go and, okay, explain to me? You don't want to understand it. You know right away, spiritually, that you don't want to have anything to do with this. So that's one of the reasons why it's so difficult to study. The spirit of Marxism is a rebellious spirit. It's a spirit from resentfulness. It's hateful and it's very vengeful. It justifies violence. It's full of hatred for religion. Religion actually for most of us is the essence. It's the core of our being. It's the most important thing to us in our life, right? It's so, our relationship with God, even according to the divine principle, that's number one. That's the first blessing. That kind of is everything in our essence that goes from there. He hates it. He denies it. Marxism. Actually, when you start to study it, you'll find out it's pretty unscientific. You can't use it to predict anything. It doesn't work when you try and put it into your actions, into your society. It's not practical. And at times it's even nonsensical. And yet, how many people do you know who believe things that aren't true or don't make any sense? People get hooked on we're building the ideal world, so this doesn't matter so much. They skip over the parts that don't make any sense. They say, well, it's a mystery. How about that one? Yeah. You actually experience very much against freedom of thought and freedom of action. Politically correct culture is an example of that. How many of you might be a little afraid to put a Trump bumper sticker on your car? Depending on where you live, you could get your car damaged. Right? How many people are afraid to say all lives matter? Examples, right? Recently in the news, there was a woman in a car stopped by Black Lives Matter. She said all lives matter, and they killed her. That kind of terrorism, you hear about that. If you get stopped in your car, you're going to say all lives matter? You're scared, right? That is what they want. That is the purpose of some of their actions. They advocate censorship. They want to stop any opposing ideas. You go to colleges, right? You cannot have a different opinion. In businesses, you get fired. What was her name? Barry Weiss was opinion page editor in the New York Times. She just resigned because of the terrible work environment. She just wanted to do journalism, be objective. And all of the leftists attacked her all the time, publicly attacked her. Terrible work environment. They tried to bully her and shut her up. It is an ideology of victimhood, creating victims so that you owe me this reparations thing. 200 years ago, my ancestors were slaves, and your ancestors were the slave owners, so you owe me. I can take from you what you have earned, even though I didn't earn it. That claim, that's a thief. That's a thief mentality. It's a violation of thou shalt not steal. We talked about this. It's very atheistic, militantly atheistic. They really want to deny God, destroy religion. Because I'm going to get to this point. Think about it. Because the foundation of this ideology is that there is no God, atheist. So if somebody were to believe in God, they can't go any further in this ideology. It's destroyed. So they have to, that foundation, they have to absolutely insist on that foundation of atheism, no God. They actually deny everything but matter. They deny that you have a mind, actually. That's only matter in action, or matter somehow interacting with the environment. It's pretty nonsensical, especially, this was 150, 170 years ago they developed these ideas. Science was at a really low level, actually, at that time. They didn't have any microscopes. They didn't have, so many different truths have come out. The Big Bang Theory, that was, the 1950s. So they thought that matter had existed forever and that the properties of matter are making what we have here now. And everything is a result of just matter. It's very emotional, rebellious, it's very highly arrogant. Because once you deny God, then where's the source of truth? I'm the truth now. Oh, you've got your truth, I got my truth. Now my truth is better than yours. Goodbye. So they make man God, or they act like they're God, all-knowing from there on. There's a new morality. You know, you think you know what good and evil is, but their system of thought has a different definition of what is good and what is evil. If you oppose them, you're evil. If you support their cause, that's good. So if you're in the way of their ideology progressing, or their, how they're acting, you're standing in the way, then we have to destroy you. That's good in this way of thinking. It motivates, it drives people to act aggressively. It's justified. And it claims to be scientific. That's actually a great strength, because many, many people now think, oh, science is the end-all and be-all, and it's the full truth is revealed in science, and we don't need God anymore. All right. When you see this kind of white box, I've taken that directly from the manual. So we can see that as a direct result of the belief in no God, that's what the point is. When there's no regard for God, there can be no basis for morality. That we just talked about. Therefore, man can do anything without remorse. We talked about, they've destroyed more than 150 million human beings. And that was in 1985. So they had another 35 years to kill people. This number is incomprehensible. It's a statistic. But imagine the families of those people killed. Imagine God's feelings. This is what we're dealing with. Here's a quote from Karl Marx, 1848. There is only one way in which the murderous death agonies of the old society. So the old society has to be destroyed, and it's the agony. It's going to go through an agony when it's destroyed, right? And the bloody birth throes of the new society. So as a new society comes into birth, there will be bloody birth. Blood will be there at the birth of a new society, right? So it can be shortened, simplified, and concentrated. So we're trying to get to the ideal world. So a good thing to do is to shorten the revolution. That's good. So the faster and more efficiently that we can get rid of our opposition, the quicker we get to the kingdom of heaven. Or he didn't call it that, of course. So that way is revolutionary terror. This was Marx. Let's have some terror. That's a good thing for the accomplishment of the utopia. Also, just another thing about Marx. Marx, obviously he had all these feelings, but he gathered his ideology from a lot of different places. And he was so happy when he came across Charles Darwin's book, On the Origin of Species, because it showed that we all came in a materialistic process. There was no God necessary. And most people, they know Darwin's book is called On the Origin of Species, but they never read they don't know the rest of it. By means of natural selection or the preservation of favored races in the struggle for life. Favored races. Marx loved that. It was a justification for materialism, that all things are just material. Everything developed from material. We grew up from animals. We're just animals. Survival of the fittest. He loved that. Who's the strongest, basically? Who has the most power? So we have to build our forces more and more and more and more until we have the power, and then we kill. Darwin's work is the most, this is a quote from Karl Marx, Darwin's work is most important, and it suits my purpose in that it provides a basis in natural science for the historical class struggle. So again, he said it was scientific. Darwinism is not scientific. It is a joke, actually. And they've been working for over 150 years to try and show that it's true, and it's getting more and more difficult for them, actually. Thank you. Now here, this is an insight. I don't know if you've had this before or you've heard of this, but I really, at one point, I felt, wow, this is so much like divine principle in an evil way. Because Marx came up, he has a creation story. That's Darwinism. You know, we all grew up from matter. Right? Matter has been here forever. He explains, he has a definition of what went wrong, the fall. How did sin and evil come into the world? Everything was communal living and everybody was happy. And then what happened? Then we started to get private property. And people became selfish, and then people began to own other people, and so forth. So he has a story of evil, how evil came in the world, and he has a solution for that. He has a historical analysis of where things are going, how things are developing. This is powerful because we know divine principle is powerful. He flipped it. He has an explanation of what is salvation, and he has a savior in there. The proletariat is going to rise up and destroy evil, and then all goodness will come back again, somehow, magically, actually. And the end result is utopia. In the end, this is our goal. History is predetermined. It's matter in motion, and here we go. We're going to get there, and eventually, after all this violence, suddenly it'll wither away all the bad stuff, and then we'll have the ideal world all over again, on a higher level, of course. I came across this meme, which I like. What kids think communism is? What was that statistic? How many college students believe socialism is a good idea? 40% or 60%, I forget. Huh? Somebody else? Anyway, it's presented as a way to get to the kingdom. All of us loving each other, everybody being good. And what communism really is that lower picture of violence and killing. So here's a quote from a person who converted to Marxism. He says, my conversion is like a faith. He was a French writer, André Gide. He said, the plan of the Soviet Union seems to constitute the salvation of humanity. This is the mindset of people who adopt Marxism-Leninism. This is the salvation for the world. This is the goal that I want to go to. Che Guevara, he said, I believe in armed struggle as a result of studying Marxism. Armed struggle, that's the way. Here was an analysis in the Wall Street Journal. A writer said that as absurd as the communist ideology may appear, it provides a consistent view of history to its adherents, and it makes even the simplest citizen feel as though his life has meaning. It's an ideology that makes people feel like their life is valuable. I have meaning now. I can go out and protest. I can burn down buildings, and I'm building the kingdom of heaven. Because they're converted and because they believe in this, you can't talk them out of it, actually. We experience life of faith. We discuss with people who disagree with our beliefs, but we can't seem to change their beliefs. All right? It's really an individual conversion experience. He said it can be defeated in only one way, by being confronted with an idea that's better. Communism is not politics. We can't deal with communism on the level of politics, which is what the West has been doing for this whole time, basically. It is a religion, and people actually convert in their minds to communism. It is a faith. Okay. Marx, in the beginning, and he stated this, he set out to justify and create violent revolution. He spent a long time, he looked at a lot of philosophies, and he decided that in the end, people don't change enough, fast enough. We're not doing it. The kingdom is not coming fast enough. We got to change all of this. And he finally decided that revolution was the only way. And so that's what he set out in his mind. This is the goal. So how can we get to that goal using a belief system? So this is an ideology. We're not going to overcome it with an anti-communism. That's a defensive position. We have to be offensive. We have to attack with a better idea. We have to clearly refute their ideology. And Christianity has often been infected by Marxist thought. And Christianity doesn't recognize the battle that they're in, to a large extent. Let me point out that our true father, as early as the 1960s, recognized this evil. And he set up the International Federation for Victory Over Communism in the early 1960s, and went all over Asia with this ideology. Father put so much effort and resources into defeating communism. Some of you here may remember, I know my wife was out on the streets debating communists in Japan. Right? And this material is called causa material. This began in the 1980s. The manual was created in 1985. Who was I talking to? Robert was saying that he was out on the streets. He was visiting ministers, visiting military facilities, taking the causa material in Texas. So the causa material was being used all throughout the Americas, especially in Latin America, I believe. So it had you can see there, it had a long name. Anyway, at the bottom there. Was the original name, but eventually just got shortened. So, Victory Over Communism and causa gave a strong critique and a counter-proposal, which was called Godism at the time. I would like to make an update to that from the experience I've had studying this material and a realization that we need a stronger action component to the Godism ideology. So I believe the newest revelation for this age is this. I love this. Everybody know what that is? That's the lead-in to the King's Report every morning. I think this gives the kind of spirit we need. Be brave again. All right. So I put it in this kind of relationship. The internal ideology is the Godism. It's the spiritual part. And I would like to add Christ in there too. When Causa was originally taken all over the Americas, they made it a kind of a universal religious concept, not being specific to Christianity. But I think that at this time in history, we need to have Christ in there. So I don't think the other religions have the power that's needed at this time in history. The Rod of Iron Ministries is more down to earth. It's really the practical manifestation of this ideology of Godism. We have a constitution. We know what kind of kingdom we're going to build. We understand individuals' responsibility. We understand what kind of society we want to create now. It's not like Marxism that we do all this violent revolution and then we create socialism and then it just withers away into the ideal. We're not doing that. We're doing practical step by step. We're doing the training that gets us there, the thinking that gets us to the kingdom of heaven. This is really the practical, I think. So what we have gotten from the second king, which he got from True Father, is the way we're going to build the kingdom. It's coming. It's coming. It's here. It's a small seed right now. But just like 2,000 years ago when Jesus had a few disciples, it can't be stopped because God is behind it. The peace police and the peace militia is an incredible concept about how the world is going to run in the future. We can understand that. We can look at that. We can see, okay, now we know who's going to be responsible. We are. We know what kind of kingdom we're going to live in. And it's a cultural and a society level, and it will expand and expand and expand. So, have you ever wondered how just one little dog controls so many sheep? Fear, right? Now here's a couple quotes. Vladimir Lenin, one man with a gun can control 100 without one. Fear. And the famous quote we know from Mao Zedong, all political power comes from the barrel of a gun. And then he continued, the Communist Party must command all the guns. That way, no guns can ever be used to command the party. So the Second Amendment, the rod of iron, it's this. We give the sheep some way to fight back with an ideology and with weapons. So this is a comment that the West has not been fighting communism ideologically. It's been fighting just defensive in nature, just giving. Always, we're being pushed. We're always giving in more and more. Oh well, just, at some point we have to fight back. So a strategy for victory over communism has really been non-existent, except, well, of course, Father did Victory Over Communism and Causa. It was there, but where is it now? So the king is saying, let's bring it back. And that's what this today is, the first step in bringing back victory over communism. So, as I mentioned, that was 1985. This was written. It's been 105 years since then now. There's no way we can eliminate communism if we do not confront it with a superior ideology or worldview. And the worldview must begin with the idea of God. The affirmation of God's existence is the one way we can overcome communism. God alone can overcome godlessness. The whole foundation of Marxism completely collapses as soon as a person believes in God. So this is very profound for me, that when you believe in God, it's not just believing, but if you experience God, you can't really go back. You can't get into Marxism, because Marxism starts out with the foundation there's no God. So part of our job is to testify to God. I wrote a book called 101 Proofs for God, but the reason I wrote that book is because I was sitting on my bed one night feeling old and thinking, I don't have so much time left here on the earth. God, what do you want me to do? And I was overwhelmed with this feeling of God's loneliness. My children don't know me. And so, I thought about that, and I got, yeah, people just, even if they believe in God, God is not a part of their life to a large extent. And then there's a gigantic part of the world which is no God at all. So, as I thought about it, I thought, I've got to put something out there. The way I can help is to put something out there to prove that God exists, so it's available when the time comes. So for 5 years, it took me to do the research and to write that book, but so many times I would pray, God, what do you want me to do now? And I would just feel, write your book. So, obviously, 101 proofs for God, there's a million proofs for God. But, it was amazing how from one to the next, when I'd finish one, I'd just start praying, what's next, what's next? And looking around, doing research, looking around, and finally something, do that one. And it was a great experience. And there's so many things in there. Some things for children in there. There's things for old people in there. Everything is covered in there to some extent, right? And the very last one, Jesus. Jesus is a proof for God. And I used a lot of the information the King gave one time in one of his sermons about the historical Jesus. But experiencing God is what we want people to know. That's what we got to share with people, is God. And another point to make is that we are not saying that the West is perfect, America is perfect, or anything like that. We recognize that there's a great evil we have to defeat, but there's a reason we have to change this society as well. Godism calls for a change in the West. It is the corruption in the West that allows communism to portray itself as a liberator. If you look at a lot of these big cities in America, the kind of life growing up in one of those big cities in fear, every day in fear. Somebody was telling me they heard a story of a family sleeps in the bathtub because gunshots can come through their apartment anytime. You imagine day after day after day, that's the world around you. It's not the kind of world we live in at all. So you'd be pretty upset. You'd want to change that if you could. So this kind of failure of the ideals of America, we have failed. All these people that are out in the streets protesting, they feel something that they don't like. So we're not sinless over here. We're not perfect in America at all. We've got a long way to go to clean it up. So unless God-loving people stand together on the front line and fight against the anti-religious force of communism, who is going to do it? Who will? We have to bring together God-affirming and conscientious people of all colors and creeds, of course. That's where we have this quote, "Make Christianity brave again, develop a warrior mindset and a culture." Bob's still here? Yesterday's presentation by Tom and Bob was just really, I don't know if you guys had a chance to hear about what was said there, but they are really sharing the mindset of a warrior. And one of the things that really struck me after I left there was the concept of awareness. That these warriors, or the people who are trained soldiers, they develop this awareness because it's their job. They have to recognize when a threat is coming. Right? And they know a threat is coming to this nation. Almost all of they see it coming. They feel it coming. Those of us who are not trained in that, we don't recognize it. So most of America is really dumbed down as far as threats go. But the warrior culture, the veterans who've experienced it, who've trained in it, they see it. They recognize it. That's why God is pushing us to connect with the veterans. They are our natural allies in this fight. They're God's people. God is calling them with us to fight this fight. What we are a part of is so much bigger than we understand. What God is doing every day in the lives of anyone who's thinking of God and thinking of helping people is far, far beyond what we could even begin to imagine. These are the days when the revolution is taking place, the change from the evil world to the good world. This is a quick chip. And Christianity took 2,000 years to change, to convert about 25% of the population of the world. I don't know what it is now. But communism started in the middle 1800s, has taken over billions and billions of people at this time. By force, that's what's happening. All right, I'm going to get into the Causa Manual a little more. And here, I want to give you kind of a framework to understand the manual, to give it some perspective for us, a little easier to see where it's going, why it's doing what it's doing. In the beginning, they talk about a description of the current world situation and the growth of communism from its inception. That I call the diagnosis. We're recognizing where the world is at, what's happening, how it's happened, where we are today. So that's, of course, 1985. And then they get into an explanation of Marxist theory, and that's the disease. And then they explain the critique and counterproposal, Godism, that's the cure. Okay, so we got the diagnosis, we got the disease, and we got the cure. So here's a screenshot of the beginning of the table of contents. And as I said, the diagnosis is chapter 1. They talk about communist expansionism in the West. Talks about Nazism as a historical precedent. And what's happened in the West, how people have been naive, and so forth. Excuse me. And there's a lot of content, but here's one of the key points. Marx's worldview continues to captivate young people. Young people tend to be idealistic. They want to build a better world. They want to see social justice. There's problems around them. They want to solve those problems. They're socially concerned, right? So when you see the protests, all these young people out there, all these college kids are getting involved, right? They think they're helping that way. They want to help. They're very idealistic. So they turn to communism because it promises solutions. It predicts a utopian future. It predicts the end of racism, social injustice, and economic exploitation. Those are ideals that they are attracted to. And communism, Marxism, it criticizes and attacks the society as it exists. They attack capitalism. They attack. It's easy to point out problems. That doesn't make you the solution. But then they come along with a solution that they propose after you have accepted that their criticism is correct. And you, being involved in the criticism, you start to think, oh, we good people, we're going to solve this problem. And you accept the solution they give you unthinkingly to a large extent, because you already accepted that what they are saying is true. Because their critique is accurate when they critique the evil in society. It's very deceptive. We live today in the midst of a new ideological deception. Like Nazism, communism promises justice and a better way of life. In reality, it exacerbates human misery, as we know. It makes it worse. Here's a nice Bible quote you're probably familiar with. You belong to your father, the devil, and you want to carry out your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning, not holding to the truth, for there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks his native language, for he is a liar and the father of lies. I thought that described Marxism pretty well. You've probably all seen The Human Cost of Communism. There's various ways to add it up. There's books written, Death by Government. How many people have been killed? These statistics just so hard to get your head around. If we saw this going on outside our door, people being arrested, just disappearing, people being organ harvested, people being murdered, taken to concentration camps, it's just hard to believe in a society. We live in such an idyllic society, actually. But that kind of stuff happening all around you every day is what it's been like in all these communist countries. And then people say, the converts in America, they'll say, well, we know they killed 150 million people, but that's not true Marxism. That's not true. We are going to be different. We are the true Marxists. We are going to make the true ideal world. We are the good ones. They just didn't do it right. Unfortunately, a lot of people are that gullible. Unfortunately, a lot of people are good people, and they've latched onto this ideology for building the kingdom of heaven, thinking we're good people, this is the way to do it, because the goal is our goal. So then they get converted into using this methodology for getting to a goal they want to go to, but it's never going to get them there. Without the ends justifies the means is what this is all about. the end is so good that destroying everybody in the process that gets in our way is the right thing to do. That's crazy. So here, this is an interesting side note kind of comment. If you know about game theory, or just think about two people playing a game, a board game, all right? One person, the good person, he's thinking, okay, we're all playing a game. We're going to have fun together. Everybody's going to play by the rules. We're all reasonable. This is the way generally the people in the West deal with communist countries and the communists. This is the way, for example, America has been dealing with China for a long, long time. We play by the rules. We'll sign this agreement with them, and we won't cheat. And we think that you are the same as us. All right? But the people on the other side of the game, they have different rules. They have a different mindset. They have a different understanding of what game they're playing. Their game is to defeat you, absolutely, destroy you, and take everything that you have. They think you are the mortal enemy. I've always felt, why do the leftists hate people so much? Why do they hate Donald Trump so much? It's just, what? Where is all that coming from? But to them, he is the personification of evil in the world. That's the game they're playing. That's their understanding. They will be eternally aggressive and treacherous. So I gave those examples. Vladimir Lenin, he was one of his comments, any trick, ruse, or illegal method is okay in order to get us forward towards utopia. So we have different understandings of good and evil. You can't discuss good and evil with a person who has a different understanding of what's good and what's evil. When you think, oh, this is a good thing to do, they may not think that's good because it's not advancing their ideals, right? It's standing in the way. So nothing that Donald Trump ever does is good. By definition, they're not looking at it as if, well, they're not analyzing, is that good for a lot of people? Is that good for society? Is that good for America or the world? No. Every single thing he does is evil. Because he's standing in the way of their accomplishing their goals. They have a different definition of good and a different definition of evil. So, every person on the Democratic side is a good person. They can rape people. They can commit all kinds of corruption and graft and steal money, and they can pay for play, rake in lots of money. They can do all these things. That's not evil. That's good. What they are never accused. They are never, all this rioting, peaceful protests. Burning down businesses, destroying people's lives. That's good. Shutting down the governor's order. Wear a face mask. Close your business. Well, that's good. You may not experience it that way, but you don't understand what good and evil are. Their definition is different. Okay, now the hard part. We get a little into ideology. Where are we? Okay. I'm going to speed it up. Alienation. This is what Marx's idea was, way back in the beginning when human beings there wasn't very many people in the world. Everything was fine and idyllic, and we were in touch with what he called our species essence. But that got lost as soon as we started to have private property. That was his, and we started separating from our original goodness. And this was the sinfulness. This is what happened. So we became separated. And this is the experience that people have. Something is wrong. Okay, this is the alienation. He thinks we're alienated from our true matter, our beginning. We all began as matter, and we're alienated from our true essence, matter. The real alienation he was experiencing was his alienation from God. This is an interesting poem he wrote. After his break with God, Marx wrote this poem because he felt cursed for eternity. He said, God has snatched from me all my all, everything. God took it away from me and cursed me. All his worlds are gone beyond recall. Nothing but revenge is left to me. That's a wonderful, isn't it? This is his poem. Revenge, that's all he's got left. He's totally alienated. So, one comment they made is, unable to participate in the Christian experience of repentance. You know, we hear, actually in this church we don't hear that much about repentance. But in Christianity in general, repent is the first thing you got to do before you can get to know God. Before you can understand, truth, you have to repent. Separate yourself from sin. Marx could not do that. He actually became more and more empowered by Lucifer, I believe. He thought that God was the enemy of human progress, and he committed himself to the elimination of all religion. So the book goes into a lot of information about his life and his writings and who influenced him and what he read and so forth. I'm not going to cover any of that. Feuerbach was one of the main influences on him. Hegel was another one. But he eventually concluded that people and circumstances will not change fast enough. I can't convert people quick enough. So he decided that revolution was the answer. So Marx holds that human beings are not children of God. Human beings, at most, were just some malleable blob when we start out. He said the human essence has no true reality. Just matter. You're matter. And it's developed matter, but it's matter. There's no reality of spirit. So humans are plastic and shaped by their circumstances. He believed that it was our environment, our economic, material environment that made us who we are. Not like we have free choice, not like we're making decisions. We are automatically determined by our environment. So if you're a white person, you're a racist. You're determined by your environment, by your skin color, by something materialistic, has determination over everything. There's no free will in that sense. He said, it is not the consciousness of men that determines their lives. On the contrary, their social being that determines their consciousness. So it's the society that decides everything. So in order to make the ideal, you obviously have to destroy the society that's causing all this evil. It makes some kind of crazy sense. We've got to have a revolution because all the people are all messed up, so they're messed up by the society, by the materialism of this world. So we've got to get rid of all that, get back to the essence. So he said, he showed the base. The base is matter, materialism. It's the economic system. So the economic system is the exchange of matter and products. So that is the foundation. Everything is based on matter and products. So philosophy, morality, religion, politics, all this is based on matter. So this is so upside down that it's hard to conceive of a person thinking that everything comes from just the material around us, from the world that we live in. Like, you are predetermined, you are controlled by your environment. You don't have a free will. Everything you're doing is already predetermined. Kind of scary. So the economy is the foundation of everything. Society comes up from the economy. So society creates the government and the state. Religion comes from the economy, ultimately, the foundation. So private property is the cause of evil in the society because people are selfish with the private property. So if we get rid of the private property, we'll have liberation. And we don't need God. So this is Marx said, the lost essence of humanity could be recaptured. We can get back to the original ideal by the proletariat negation of private property. So we have to overthrow the capitalist system because the system is what's causing all the evil. So the goal, Marx said this, the theory of communism can be summed up in one sentence: abolish all private property. How many remember the second king gave several sermons on sovereignty and private property? Right? Does this sound like the opposite of what God's side is saying? Absolutely. Marx, Communist Manifesto. We openly declare that our ends can be attained only by the forcible overthrow of all existing social conditions. All social conditions. Heavy duty. Listen to their words. You know, they're out there claiming that we're going to help you get to the kingdom of heaven. But their process is evil. So then the book goes into dialectical and historical materialism. And again, the point of all of this was to get to violent revolution. So he wants to, develop some kind of scientific analysis of the way the world works based on matter to get us to the point where we have to have a violent revolution. So his point, again, was foment revolution. So his three main components, he had the middle one, dialectical materialism, was the explanation of how matter works. Then historical materialism, that's how history is progression based on matter and what the properties of matter. And the economic theories, really, what he wanted to do with the economic theories is to show that capitalism has to be destroyed. What is changing here, capitalism by its very nature is evil. It takes advantage of people. It makes people suffer, and therefore it has to be destroyed. So these were his laws of matter, the dialectical materialism, historical materialism, his so-called laws of history. Now, if you're a young, naive person and you listen to this, oh yeah, laws of nature. And you say, oh yeah, the laws of nature, that's how it works. It makes sense, okay. Got some laws of nature here. Now we got some laws of history. Ooh, now I understand what's happening in the world. I can look out there and I put it in a framework of what's going on. Where are we going? Where are we supposed to be going? So we got laws of history. In fact, though, his laws of nature are based on contradiction, destruction. We'll see that in a minute. So rather than love your enemy, it comes down to the essence of kill your enemy. That's his dialectical materialism. Historical materialism comes down to we are predestined to build the ideal world. It's coming. Absolutely. That's a very powerful thought. You know, people will join the winning team, right? You want to be with the winners. If you see even though you don't like them, if you see they're going to be the winners, you better go over there to get some of the stuff in the end, because to be on the losing side means you lose everything. You might get killed. So, again, that was his justification for violence. So dialectical materialism, that was the first one, argues for that the morality of the universe, all matter, is based on struggle, conflict, and destruction. This is how progress takes place. So progress comes from destruction. And in historical materialism, this was his view that we're in the last days. It's the time now. We've got to the end of the progression of history. We're going to begin a new history. The ideal is coming. It's just around the corner. We just have to do a little bit more, and we're going to get there. So it is inevitable. It's coming. So this is the last days, folks. They believe that too. God's will is going to be done on earth. Well, they believe that the will of matter is going to be done on the earth, and we're coming back to the kingdom. It's coming soon. So his analysis of history was this. We start with a communal society. Everything's nice and beautiful and rosy. And then we get up to the slave society, because people start owning private property. And somehow, eventually, people start owning each other. And then that grows and grows and grows until it has to hit a revolution. The slaves get so many, they rebel. Then we get the feudal society, where we have fiefdoms and small groups of people working together. Eventually, that changes. We get the capitalist society. And now we're at the point where capitalism is growing and growing, but the proletariat inside of capitalism is growing, and it's going to destroy. So here's your original goodness. Here's where the sin comes in. Our Savior is the proletariat. This is a group of people that are going to come along and start the revolution that will bring the kingdom. Bring utopia. Let me skip this one. I'm going to, here. Inside everything, this is the law of nature. There's inside everything, there is its antithesis, which is growing, and it's finally going to break out. And there's going to be a violence there. This is the way things go. This is the laws of nature. So everything is contradictory. Cooperation, you see it, but it's not real. It's not real. It's just happening. Contradiction is the essence of that. So everything changes over time. Quantity, the force that's antithesis force is growing bigger and bigger until finally it punches through and has a violent revolution. So he used an example of an egg. So we got these, inside the egg is the antithesis. The shell is what's holding everything. That's the thesis. That's capitalism, for example. Inside capitalism is the force growing that's going to overthrow capitalism. It's growing and growing. Quantity is expanding. And finally, there's a revolution and a violent change. And then something new and wonderful has come about, the synthesis. So revolution is the key here. So again, things are transforming. Number two, quantity to quality, going up. And then there's a cycle. So it's confusing, and I'm going fast, I understand. So even, it's confusing, believe me. The cycles, he tries to explain everything scientifically, but there's a lot of problems with it. Let me just do a quick critique here. You know, the Marxism says there's a thesis and antithesis, that they are in opposition and they're struggling, and then finally something good comes out of that. There's no purpose, it's just a property of matter. Whereas we would say that there's a purpose, subject and object work in harmony, correlation, and then something new comes about. he talks about the law of quantity is increasing until there's finally a revolution, and then new quality is there. This is so bogus because he didn't know what was happening inside of an egg. It's not a blob that's growing inside of the egg, and then suddenly it breaks through the shell violently, and there's a chicken, a chicken. That's not what's happening in the egg, actually. So his theory is totally unscientific. Obviously, we know the chick is developing inside the egg, and at the time when it's nearly ready, the egg shell actually becomes weaker so the chick can get out. It works together. That's the way it was created. So anyway, there's a lot of stuff like this. His negation of the negation doesn't make any sense. Sometimes it's chicken, egg, nothing gets destroyed. Sometimes violent revolution is necessary. It's all over the place. But anyway, he's trying to get to the point where we've got to have class struggle. We've got to have violent revolution, and then something good, better is going to be the result. And then I covered a little bit about historical materialism. I want to make one comment or addition here. Marx on the family. The exploitation of man in its present form, its embryonic form, the family relationship is the basis of society. The wife and children are slaves of the husband. Okay, that's quite an interesting view, isn't it? Especially if he manifests that in his own family. But how many feminists think that way? That's where you get this. That's Marxism. The men are enslaving the women. Right? The children need freedom and liberation from the parents. So we talked about this. Let me go through these quickly. Slave society, we talked about. You can kind of guess what these are. Feudal society. The idea is that things are predestined to keep going and going until finally there's the kingdom. Capitalist society, everything contains the seeds of its own destruction, each level. So the working class keeps growing until there's a revolution. And then the socialist society, eventually the socialist society is when there's a lot of violence and they take over and then they own all the stuff, and then the good begins to come out. You know, once they own everything, then they can make the ideal world because they're in control. And they really think socialism is efficient system. And it's really the way that the ideal will come about. Fortunately, the way they understand it, once you get to socialism, you can't go back, you can't protect it, and there's all these enemies from the outside. So you have to build up a giant military force and a police force to protect socialism. There's all these people out there from outside of your country too that are going to attack you. Nicaragua is an example. They went from 12,000 to 250,000 military, soldiers. A strong force, police force is required also. There's probably some people believing in religion out there still. There's probably some philosophies out there that need to be destroyed to get to the ideal. So we got to have a big police force to get rid of all those people. And Lenin even said, he's terror. That's the way we're going to do it. We'll scare people into giving up their religions and everything. This is, once you get advanced stages of socialism and everybody's under control and you're believing the right way, then eventually the state will wither away and we'll have the ideal world. I guess people getting into this, they believe it, and finally at the end they just keep believing that. They never question, well, if you got this strong police state, why are they going to just give all that up? They have all this power and they control everything. Why are they just going to wither away and the ideal is going to come? And there's lots and lots of critiques, obviously. Historically, we can look back and say, well, this never worked. The proletariat never appeared. But Lenin came along. That was the big difference. Lenin came along, and he was the mastermind, actually, that took this idea of violent revolution, and he made it practical. He got together with a bunch of, intellectuals and so forth. Oh, wait a minute. Marxist economic theories. I'm almost out of time, so I'm going to tell you how stupid this was. The labor theory of value. Because everything's based on matter, then when you do work and you create something, that has value. So, for example, he tried to show that your labor is what produces value. So, for example, you take 1 hour and you make a pen. You take 2 hours and you make a glass. So the glass will sell for twice as much as one pen in the marketplace. The value comes from the matter and the labor that went into it. That's his theory. So he said all raw materials, he said, I don't know if, can you read that? The materials plus machinery plus labor is your product. He said all raw materials costs are constant. Machinery cost is constant, he said. So all profits come from the labor. So he's going to the point where you're a laborer, you're being cheated. All the value is right there, you're not getting that value. This is where he's going. So he came up with the concept of surplus value, and that's the value that is stolen from the laborer. Price is not determined in the market. Price is determined by the labor that goes into the product. This is totally simplistic. It's nonsensical. It never worked. They never actually used it. When they do, it totally makes a mess of their society and their economic system. They cannot, everybody has to cheat and do stuff on the side to be able to survive. There are many other costs, obviously. I don't think you can read that, but management, research, engineering, inventions, all that goes into the costs. Labor hours never equals the price. Right away, he ran into problems because, for example, if it takes 5 hours to make a watch and it takes 5 hours to make a pile of gravel, they should sell for the same price because it took 5 hours. Well, obviously they don't. So he had to come up with another concept called abstract labor hours. So that when you multiply by abstract labor hours, then you actually get the price. But the price, that doesn't determine the price either, because you don't know what the abstract labor hours are. The abstract labor hours for making a watch are totally different than the abstract labor hours for making a pile of gravel. So, in the end. And it totally ignores supply and demand, of course. We all understand, in a sense, supply and demand. Too much supply, then you got to lower your price. If there's big demand, then you can raise your price. Right? But not only that, suppose that they go out and they spend hours and hours and hours making only left shoes. Can you sell that? What's the price? How many hours did you put in? Okay, that'll tell us the price. Or a buggy whip. You know what buggy whips are? That's what they used when they had a horse in front of their buggy. And they don't need those anymore. Can't sell those. But you can spend a lot of time making one. And then there's the issue also of quality. If it's a lousy, shoddy product, nobody wants it. They're not going to pay for it. Price is not determined by labor. So Marx was a total failure in his economic system. Actually made things worse wherever it was tried. And in Marx's system, individual enterprise, individual initiative, free exchange of goods, these are all criminal activities. Because what you're doing is you're not following the dictates of the communist leaders who are telling you what the price should be, so forth, controlling of the market. So now we get, just quickly, Leninism was what really made Marxism take off. Marxism had the ideology and the concept of violent revolution, but it was Lenin who really put it into practice. But he made a lot of revisions to Marxism, actually. And instead of just waiting around for the proletariat to grow so big that there's a revolution to destroy capitalism, he decided that you had to get a vanguard of the proletariat. This is the small group of people who's going to push the revolution. They're highly trained, they're very secretive, they cheat, they do violence, terror. He has iron control over this small vanguard. That was it. And you want to control the society and the culture. So his goal was to raise, I'm sorry, I'm almost out of time. But I think you get the idea what's happening here. Lenin is the one who really put this into practice. And he has this absolute secrecy. You start doing stuff in secrecy, you know something's wrong. And if you've seen those Project Veritas videos of people went into Marxist training centers, they're training them how to kill people, how to break windows, how to, all this training, and it's secret, very, very secret. They had to go through levels of security and vetting to be able to get into that meeting. The vanguard's very secretive. They're the instigators of the revolution. The useful idiots are those who are gathered for the good ideal of this protest, and they get pushed into mob violence. They push the people out in front, and they throw bricks from behind, trying to get somebody to shoot at the innocent people to cause a revolution. That's what we see all going on in America. So Marx said you had to work at two levels. You work externally, legally, and all that, but then underneath you do all these look to seize power, these subversive activities underground. And they want to foment rioting and revolution. So that's the point at which you can take over, when the government is in confusion. So then we go... Quick comment, Marx's view of man was even lower than Darwin's. Marx hated God. He essentially hated people. His relationships with people were awful. They were irredeemable animals blocking his utopia. Eliminating people would speed up the coming ideal. People need to be killed. To get rid of them, we got to have, we're going somewhere here. The faster we can get there, faster revolution. Well, these are just different sections of the Causa Manual. Here are my takeaways. We're in a fight whether we like it or not. Whether you have decided to fight or not, the fight is coming to you. So it's important, I think, a realization, studying this material, that we are in a fight. It's a spiritual battle right now. We also know that the second coming of Christ has occurred. And God has promised his kingdom. We need to do our portion of responsibility, and God will do his. Evil is not going to give up. We can see that. Look at our society. The fight now is mostly ideological. but it may turn physical. It already has in a number of cities in America. More evil will be exposed. I don't know how much you are aware of you see a lot of the evil and the corruption and stuff, but we're not getting close yet to seeing in the media Satanism. And some of us are more aware of child sex trafficking and sex abuse and all this kind of stuff. It's bubbling out. But that is rampant. That is, this Jeffrey Epstein, this kind of stuff, he had very high-level people there doing, sex abuse, child sex trafficking, all this kind of stuff. More and more of that evil is going to come out. And I heard it said that if we knew the evil in this world, 99% of us would be in the hospital. We are normal people. The depravity that exists in this world, is far beyond our imagination. You can't imagine how evil some people are, really. And that's coming out. It has to come out. So preparedness is vital. How long have we been hearing that from the Second King? So I hope just by sharing this, you can see another reason, another justification for being prepared. So I hope you will decide to join the fight in your, whatever way God guides you, but please pray about this and see what can you contribute? Who can you share with? Where is your niche for helping to fight in this battle? And, the king is asking us to get together and by small communities and stuff. Let's do that. Let's recognize that has power. We're amazing people like Tom and Bob are coming and sharing their knowledge with us about preparedness. That's like, Bob sent you, God. God sent you, Bob. But there's no other explanation for it in my mind. Okay. To give us that kind of mentality, that kind of mindset, or help us understand it. So, thank you very, very much. God bless you and God bless America. Please take a break. Meet back at 11 for Sunday service.